Good day everyone, my name is Ibitoye. This is my long video on overcoming security issues in big data using Apache Accumulo. Cyber criminals, they target all kinds of repositories, but recently they are beginning to focus their attacks more on big data. Why? Because they realize that if they can successfully break into one big data repository, it's a bigger payoff for them than breaking into several small repositories. Early this year, there was a successful big data break or security breach into Target's repository. It had huge cost implications for Target. It cost them over $1 billion, over $1 billion. And the reality is that the bigger your data, the more important it is for you to protect that data. But there are some challenges around protecting big data, and they come in 3 dimensions. Dimension number 1 is that the kind of data that big data is, the variety, the velocity, and the volume of big data, it kind of amplifies security management challenges. And these things, they are easy to manage in traditional data management, but in big data, it's a big challenge for us. The second dimension is the infrastructure. The kind of infrastructure we use to store and house big data. 80% of big data, it comes in unstructured formats. And we need to use a kind of batch processing platform, such as Hadoop, to be able to process that information so we can use it and bring out meaning from it. Lastly, the technologies that we apply to analyze structured and unstructured big data. Looking at Hadoop, for example, when Hadoop was invented or when it was designed, they did not put security into consideration, and I can be challenged on this. However, we've realized that it's so critical to have security. So, when you talk of securing big data, there are 2 things that comes to the back of our mind. The first is that you want to protect from the data flow, including the surrounding legacy systems. Secondly, you want to block any kind of attempt to access data which is not unauthorized, both from external and from internal threats. Organizations who are serious about their big data security, they are beginning to use tools. And one of those tools is what we call Apache Accumulo. What's Accumulo? It's an open source project. It's integrated on top of Hadoop. And it gives us the ability to store data in massive tables, billions of rows, millions of columns. And we are able to access that data in a secure way, not just arbitrarily. Apart from that, Apache Accumulo, it provides some kind of fine-grained security in the form of what we call cell-level access control. Basically, the key benefits of using Apache Accumulo, it has to do with its columnar arrangement of rows, the key value pair indices, and as I mentioned earlier, the cell-level security. In addition, we have what we call volume and file encryption in Apache Accumulo. This volume and file encryption leads to granular protection at the field level. And finally, when you are in an organization that requires stringent information security requirements, then Apache Accumulo is going to be beneficial for that organization. For my project, I used a working example to inject 50 million rows of data that were generated randomly into Apache Accumulo with Hadoop. To make this work, you need a code. The code was written in Java, and I used one of the provided codes, sample codes, and add a little alteration on the code. I used the platform of Ubuntu. The requirements include a Ubuntu Linux distribution. There are two dependencies before you are able to run Accumulo. One of them is Hadoop. The second is Zookeeper, before you can proceed to now install Accumulo. What are the steps? Step 1, choose the platform. I use Unix and I use Ubuntu. Before you proceed, ensure that you install every necessary required update. Step 2, you now go ahead and install the dependencies for Accumulo, which are Hadoop and Zookeeper. Then the third step is to now proceed and install Accumulo. After you have installed both Hadoop and Zookeeper and Accumulo, you can check and verify from the web interfaces if they are running. And I recommend strongly that you do these steps before you proceed, just to be sure that every dependency has been taken care of. In my example, the local host using port 5070 will help me to verify that Hadoop is running, while 5095 will help me to verify that Accumulo is running. When the dependencies have been taken care of, then I can now proceed and demonstrate how to actually upload the data into Accumulo's secure storage. Firstly, I create a table called test bulk. Secondly, using the same Java code, the script helps me to inject 50 million rows of test data into Hadoop file system. After injecting the data, or after creating the rows of test data, we now proceed and ingest that data into Apache Accumulo. The last step is to verify that the data is now in Accumulo. And I run the script, also in Java, and I'm able to verify that the data is in Accumulo. The conclusion is this. Like I said earlier, the bigger your data, the more important it is that you protect that data. Secondly, in the original design of the big data platforms that we use nowadays, especially Hadoop, security wasn't very well thought out. So we need to have an added means of securing the data that we are injecting into the big data processing platforms like Hadoop. One of those very important tools is what we call Apache Accumulo. And I have demonstrated and shown us how we can get Apache Accumulo up and running and how we can implement it and use it to store our data. At this junction, I want to say thank you for listening and goodbye.